Ahmad stood over the lifeless body of the Imam. The masjid was silent except for his own heavy breathing. The man he had once respected, trusted, and admired lay motionless on the prayer mats. Blood stained the floor, and the faint moonlight illuminated the tragedy. Ahmad's hands shook. He could hardly believe what he had done. The weapon was still in his hand, cold and heavy, but the fire in his heart had driven him beyond control. He had crossed a line that could never be undone. It had not begun like this. Earlier that day, Ahmad had walked through the streets of the city appearing calm, though his mind burned with confusion, anger, and pain. He had always held the Imam in the highest regard. The man guided the community, gave advice to the troubled, comforted the poor, and taught prayers with sincerity and devotion. Everyone trusted him, including Ahmad. Ahmad had believed that the Imam was an honest, pious man. He had thought nothing could ever shake that trust. But then he discovered the truth. It started with a simple visit to a neighbor. Ahmad had gone there to discuss a personal matter, an ordinary concern about his family, hoping for some guidance. While talking, he noticed subtle signs, whispers, glances that did not make sense. At first, he brushed them aside, telling himself that it was imagination or paranoia. Yet the unease did not leave him. Something was wrong, something hidden in plain sight. The signs became clearer that evening. Ahmad returned home early and found his wife unusually quiet. Her eyes darted when he entered the room. She avoided his gaze and fumbled with excuses. Something deep inside him told him to investigate, to observe, to see the truth for himself. Ahmad tried to suppress the feelings, telling himself to trust his wife, to trust the people he had known all his life. But the instinct would not go away. Later that night, he heard sounds that froze him. Voices, laughter, intimate whispers, voices that he knew too well. He followed the sounds and discovered the unthinkable. The Imam was with his wife. Ahmad's heart froze. The betrayal was deeper than he could have imagined. The man he had considered a guide, a father figure, had taken what was most sacred to him, the woman he loved, the partner of his life. The fire of anger ignited inside him, consuming his reason, his patience, his morality. Ahmad could not sleep that night. His mind replayed every memory of the Imam, every moment of trust, every word of advice, every smile. Every memory had been a lie. He thought of his wife, the life they had promised to share, and the secret that had destroyed it. Rage and sorrow filled his chest until he felt he could no longer breathe. He knew that he could not forgive, that nothing could erase the betrayal. He made a choice dark and irreversible, and it led him to the masjid that night. The streets were empty as Ahmad walked toward the masjid. The moon cast silver light over the domes, and the city slept, unaware of the storm that had been gathering in one man's heart. Ahmad's steps were heavy, but his mind was focused. Every detail of his plan, every thought of revenge, every flash of betrayal pushed him forward. He carried the weapon in his hand, not in sudden impulse, but as the culmination of hours of torment and rage. He reached the masjid. The doors were locked, but he pushed them open. The old wood groaned, echoing through the empty hall. Inside, the shadows stretched across the prayer mats. The Imam knelt in prayer, unaware that the man he had betrayed stood just behind him. Ahmad's chest tightened. He remembered all the times he had listened to this man, trusted him, learned from him, sought comfort from him. Now he could not see the man as anything other than a traitor. Ahmad raised the weapon. Rage, sorrow, humiliation, and betrayal mixed inside him like a storm. He struck. The Imam collapsed. Silence filled the masjid. Ahmad's mind raced. The man he had revered was dead. The masjid, the sacred house of God, had borne witness. Ahmad's own heart pounded with fear and exhilaration. There was no going back. The act was done. After the initial shock passed, Ahmad sank to his knees. The reality of what he had done began to settle. He had killed a man of God, someone who had guided the city, mentored the young, advised the old, comforted the grieving. And yet the reason was personal, intimate, and unbearable. The Imam had been with his wife. The betrayal had struck deeper than any public humiliation. deeper than any insult or theft. The man had taken what belonged to Ahmad in the most sacred sense. Ahmad remembered the first moment he had suspected something. A strange glance here, a whispered word there, signs he had dismissed as imagination. Then came the proof he could not ignore. The laughter, the hidden meetings, the traces that only a husband could recognize. And finally, the moment he saw them together. His mind had been shattered. His body had trembled. His soul had burned. Every heartbeat since then had led to the masjid. Every thought pointed to revenge. Ahmad stayed kneeling over the imam, staring at the man he had trusted, the man who had destroyed his life. Tears ran down his face, not just for the act he had committed, but for the betrayal, for the loss, for the impossibility of ever returning to the life he had known. The city outside began to stir, but Ahmad didn't care. He had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. Hours passed. Ahmad did not move. He thought about his wife, about the nights he had spent with her, the plans they had made, the dreams they had shared. Every memory now carried a sting of betrayal. The man who had been a guide to the city had been a thief of trust, a hypocrite in the most personal way. Ahmad's rage had been justified in his mind, though the cost was greater than he could have imagined. He thought about the consequences. If anyone discovered what he had done, there would be no forgiveness in the eyes of the law. The city would turn against him. His life, his honor, his family, everything would be destroyed. And yet, the anger, the shame, the betrayal had been too strong to ignore. He could not have walked away. He had acted in the only way he could, consumed by a desire for justice that burned hotter than reason. Ahmad remembered the moment he had discovered the truth. He had gone to the neighbor's house, seeking advice about a minor dispute, and had overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. At first, he had not understood. A laugh, a word, a name whispered. Nothing seemed important. But later the details became clear. His wife was involved with the imam. The man he had prayed to, the man he had respected, had betrayed him in the deepest way imaginable. Days and nights of torment followed. Ahmad could not eat, he could not sleep. His mind replayed the scenes over and over. He confronted his wife, but she denied nothing. Her eyes told the truth he could not bear to hear. The man he had admired had taken his place, had stolen what was most sacred. The fire of anger had become unbearable. He had decided that the only way to resolve the betrayal was to take justice into his own hands. The night he went to the masjid, everything seemed quiet. The city slept. The streets were empty. He had rehearsed every step. He had imagined the strike, the moment when the betrayal would be avenged. Nothing could have prepared him for the silence after the act, the weight of taking a life, even one so guilty. The imam had been his guide, but also his betrayer, and in the end, that duality made the act both necessary and unbearable. Ahmad thought of the faces of the community, the children who had learned prayers from the imam, the families who had sought guidance and comfort. All of them would never know the full truth. They would continue to respect the memory of the man who had destroyed one family while serving another. Ahmad carried the burden alone, the secret of betrayal and revenge heavy on his shoulders. He thought of his wife again. She had betrayed him, yes, but she had also been part of the man's lies, part of the deceit that had shattered his life. His anger at her was mixed with sorrow, confusion, and loss. He had loved her, trusted her, and in return she had chosen another. Ahmad realized that his act of murder had not just been against the imam. It had been a response to the deepest personal violation he could imagine. As dawn approached, Ahmad left the masjid. The city woke around him, unaware of the events that had taken place. The masjid stood silent, sacred, a witness to betrayal and revenge. Ahmad knew that he could never return to the life he had once known. The act had changed him forever. He was no longer the man who had walked in with hope and trust. The imam had been killed because he had taken Ahmad's wife. That was the hidden truth, and it would remain buried forever. A secret in the shadows of the masjid, a lesson in betrayal and consequence that no one else would ever understand.